Assalamu alaikum. We are studying electronic commerce and I'm your instructor Saadat Nisar. If you recall, we were discussing the concept regarding digital certificates and certification authorities, etc. If you remember, I told you that a digital certificate is a certificate in electronic format which establishes the association of an individual with his or her corresponding public key. Then there is the term certification authority. Certification authorities are defined as those public or private bodies or organizations which attest the association of a particular individual with his or her corresponding public key by issuing digital certificates. So if you remember, I told you that there are many certification authorities which are operating worldwide. One famous certification authority is VeriSign, which is based in America, and it is now operating in many other parts of the world also. In our today's lecture, I want to explain to you the concept of hash functions, the message digest, and I want to explain to you how the digital signature technology works. That is our basic aim for our today's lecture. You remember that a digital signature is defined as a letter, a number, a symbol, or a combination thereof, which can be applied to an electronic document, and once it is applied, it is executed on an electronic document. It can provide us authenticity, integrity, and non-repudiation. You know that authenticity means that we can trace a particular individual who has sent a message, and with the help of integrity, we can find out that this message, it has remained intact, it has not been altered or modified during its transmission. And non-repudiation means that the person whose digital signatures are appearing on the electronic document, he cannot deny, he cannot repudiate that these signatures do not belong to him. So these are the three characteristics of an electronic signature, and our anxiety is to see how we can implement these concepts. First of all, let me introduce two terms, hash function and message digest. A hash function is a one-way mathematical function, and when we apply this mathematical function on a text-based message, it produces a large single number. We call that result, that number, as a message digest. So this large number is of such a nature that underneath it has got a pattern of about 128 to 256 bits. So there would be a pattern of up to 256 bits behind this number. You should remember, you should register here this thing, that a message digest is unique to each message, which means that if there is a text-based message and I apply a particular hash function which was a part of my algorithm, that hash function would then produce a message digest, and that message digest would be exclusively associated with that message. If I change the message even a little bit, then by applying the hash function, I would get a different message digest. So an example is that if there is a simple word, this, when I apply a hash function on this text, the word this, I get a unique message digest, a number, which has got a pattern of up to 256 bits underneath. In case I make a slight change after the word this, I add a comma or a full stop, then by applying the hash function on this word, which has now got a comma, the word this, and followed by a comma, by applying the hash function now on this word, then there would be a different unique message digest. A message digest associated with the word this would be different from the message digest which is produced when we add a comma after the word this. So you should understand this point here, that we can have up to 2 raised to power 256 different message digests corresponding to 2 raised to power 256 different unique text messages. It is such a huge number. It is an unimaginably high number. 2 raised to power 256, even you cannot calculate. So that provides us the inference that almost all types of messages, text messages, they would be covered by this concept, and each text message that we type, that we print, it would provide us a unique message digest when a particular hash function would be applied on that message. You have to understand this concept in case you want to understand the concept how we achieve the integrity through digital signatures. Now, how does a hash function look like? Let me show you a slide. In the slide, I have written a simple mathematical function just to give you an idea how a mathematical function looks like. So, f r d equals r into e raised to power d mod m. I can say that I have written a mathematical function, a function of r and d. Now, in order to have a hash function, a one-way mathematical function, I would have to do certain coding. While preparing my algorithm, I'll have to do the coding in such a fashion that I would embed a hash function there. So in the slide you can see I have written a piece of code and which results into a hash function. For the examination purposes, I don't require you, in fact, to understand this code. I'm just showing you just for you to have a feel of it, just to have some idea that how a hash function looks like. Otherwise, I'm not going to explain the details about this code. Now, in the subsequent few slides, you will see how we apply the pair of public and private keys, how do we create confidential messages, and how do we digitally sign such confidential messages with the help of the private key of a user. So on the screen you can see I have written a plain text, I have written a sentence, together we shall make Pakistan strong, and inshallah one day we shall do. It's my belief. And now we apply the public key of the receiver on this text-based message. You should gather all the concept. How do we get hold of the public key of the receiver? Okay, you remember? One option is that we go to the key server against the particulars of that individual to whom we want to send this confidential message. We'll see his digital certificate and we'll find out his public key contained therein, and then using that public key of the receiver, we shall encrypt this message. Together we shall make Pakistan strong. As a result, this information, together we shall make Pakistan strong, this information would get encrypted in terms of that public key of the receiver. Then this information would get scrambled. In other words, at this step, we have achieved the confidentiality. We have encrypted the message. Even if somebody, some hacker, intercepts this information, still he would not be able to make any sense because it would be encrypted with the public key of the receiver, and on the receiver side, the receiver using his corresponding private key would only be able to decrypt this information. Next, I also want to sign this confidential message. For that, the sender would use his secret key, only known to the sender, his private key. And what would happen is that the sender, in fact, would apply the hash function on the message, together we shall make Pakistan strong, and as a result, he would get a message digest. Assuming that against this message, the message digest the number that comes to be 1967, so on. Remember, there is a pattern of up to 256 bits against such a number. So by inserting the private key of the sender into this message digest, which was resulted by applying the hash function, the digital signature would be created. I repeat, the digital signature would be created by inserting the private key of the sender into the message digest. In other words, this information 1967 would be encrypted, would get scrambled in terms of the private key of the sender, and we would say that a digital signature has been created. In other words, the confidential message has now been digitally signed. And just to give you an idea how the scrambling would look like, how the scrambling might appear, you can see on the slide. The information, together we shall make Pakistan strong, when the public key of the receiver was applied, it got scrambled, and as a result, a confidential message, a scrambled message was created, and on the screen, if somebody intercepts this information, he would find out A7U_B34+, so on. So all this information would be scrambled, meaningless. Nobody would be able to make any sense out of it. Only the receiver, using his corresponding private key, would be able to open this, would be able to decrypt this information. And then by applying the private key into the message digest, the digital signature is created. Normally the statement comes, block statement starts here, and then the block statement ends here, and in between there is some scrambled information. This is the digital signature. You can see 3UK7B/ so on. So in such a format, in a scrambled format, the digital signature would be created. In fact, this is the message digest. By applying the private key, it has been converted into this format, scrambled format. Now we transmit this confidential message, which has been digitally signed with the help of the private key of the sender. We send it to the receiver, say with the help of an email attachment, we send it to the receiver. The receiver has got also the proper infrastructure. He has also got the pair of keys, as you make it. Then with the help of that, he can decrypt all this information. He can verify the signature. So the information that would appear before the receiver would look like this. There would be the scrambled information, the confidential message at the top. You see A7U_B34+, so on. The receiver would now apply his corresponding private key into this scrambled confidential message, and that would then yield, that would then produce the plain text before the receiver. In order to verify the digital signatures, the receiver would use the public key of the sender. You have to keep this distinction in mind. The use of public and private key, it at times appear confusing. You have to register this thing where you apply the public key, where you apply the private key, etc. So here, in order to verify the digital signature, the public key of the sender would be utilized by the receiver. The receiver can get hold of this public key of the sender from the key server. At times, the sender, while sending the message, they transmit along with that message their public key, so that the receiver has a facility to apply the public key. So when this public key of the sender would be applied on the digital signature, that would be decrypted then. Remember, this signature was created using the private key of the sender. It could only be decrypted with the help of public key of the sender. And once the public key of the sender would be applicable, then this information can get decrypted and the signature can be thus verified. So accordingly, by applying these keys respectively, the receiver would have the information before him. The plain text would now appear, would be decrypted before the receiver. Together we shall make Pakistan strong. That information would appear. And then underneath you can see the message digest 1967, so on. That information would also be revealed before the receiver. Another way to explain the same concept, how the digital signature technology works, I have prepared a diagram, and by following the steps contained in that diagram, hopefully you will be able to comprehend this concept properly. You can look at the screen how digital signature technology works. The process of sending message using public key cryptography. Remember, digital signature technology works on the basis of public key cryptography, that is asymmetric cryptography. On the left side you see the sender side, and on the right side you can see the receiver side, and the sender and the receiver side, they are connected with the help of internet. Assuming that both the sides, they have got the appropriate softwares, they can handle the keys, the public, the private keys, they can apply the hash functions, etc. In a comprehensive digital signature technology process, first of all, the sender would type a message, a plain text, and a text-based original message, and then after that, the sender would apply the hash function. Remember, hash function is a one-way mathematical function. When that hash function is applied on the text-based message, it results into a number. We call that a message digest. And each message has got its unique message digest. If we change a message even a little bit, a comma, a full stop change, then it would result into a different message digest. So there would be a message digest when we apply the hash function. Then the sender would apply the public key of the receiver, and with the help of that, the original message would be scrambled. The public key of the receiver can be obtained from a key server against the particulars of the receiver, or the receiver may otherwise provide that public key to the sender. So using that public key, applying that public key on the original typed message, then we get this message scrambled, we get this message as confidential. Then you can notice at the bottom, the sender would apply his private key on the message digest, which was earlier achieved by applying the hash function. So when the sender inserts his private key in the message digest, it would be said that he has created a digital signature. Message digest plus private key of the sender is equal to a digital signature. And we can then say that this scrambled message has now been digitally signed. This digitally signed scrambled message with the use of internet is passed over to the receiver. The receiver gets this scrambled and signed message. First, the receiver would look for the public key of the sender to reveal the message digest. You can see at the bottom on the receiver side, the public key of the sender would be applied to reveal the message digest. Again, this public key of the sender, either the sender would provide with the help of an attachment. Again, this public key of the sender can be sent along with the message, or that can be got hold of through the key server by the receiver. The point is that by applying the public key of the sender, if the message was signed with the private key of the sender, then the message digest then should be revealed. Again, you do not stop here. As a receiver, you have to see that whether this public key of the sender has been certified by a reputed certification authority or not. So both the things, both the facts that you have been able to decrypt to reveal the message digest using the public key of the sender, plus the fact that there is a digital certificate which certifies this public key of the sender, that would ensure the authenticity. So your authenticity part, remember, digital signature provides you authenticity, integrity, non-repudiation. So your authenticity part would be served, would be satisfied here at this point. You can say, you can now get the comfort being a receiver that, well, this particular message has come to me from this particular source, whose certificate is there, whose public key has been certified by a well-reputed certification authority. So this must have come, say, from Mr. Ahmed. Then, after verifying the digital signature, then confirming the authenticity, then the receiver would apply his unique, his secret private key on this scrambled message. When the private key of the receiver would be applied, the message which was encrypted by the public key of the receiver, that message would be decrypted. It would become unscrambled and all the information in the form of plain text would be viewable by the receiver. Again, only the receiver can unscramble because this information was encrypted with the public key of the receiver. In case any hacker intercepts this message during transmission, since the hacker would not be having the private key of the receiver, it would not make any sense for the hacker. Therefore, he would not be decrypted. Only the receiver using his private key can unscramble. After that, the receiver would apply the hash function on this revealed unscrambled message. Now, the hash function is transmitted by the sender side along with the message, so the receiver side knows what was the hash function which was originally applied at the sender side. So by applying the hash function on this original message on the receiver side, the receiver would get some message digest again. The message digest that comes before the receiver by applying the hash, the receiver would then compare this message digest with the message digest the receiver had in the earlier step, revealed using the public key of the sender. In case both these message digests, they are different from each other, that would mean that the message has been altered, it has been modified during transmission. Remember the two message digests, the one which was revealed with the help of the public key of the sender, that should be the same with the message digest which is obtained by the receiver by applying the hash function on the original message which he revealed with the help of his private key. Both these message digests, if they are the same, that would only mean that the integrity part is there, that the message has not been altered. So in this fashion, we check the integrity. You notice that we confirm the authenticity, we apply the concept of certification authorities, digital certificates, to confirm the authenticity, to find out that this particular message has come from a particular source, and we have also checked the integrity. And non-repudiation would come as a consequence of the earlier two things. This appears to be a little complicated, but if you apply your mind, I'm pretty confident that you will be able to make a fair understanding. For your convenience, I have also listed these steps in the form of a slide before you. You can see these steps. Steps involved in a digital signature process. Number 1, hash function is applied to the original message in order to find the message digest. This is at the sender side, the first step. Then public key of the receiver is used to encrypt the message. Then the message gets scrambled. In order to digitally sign this message, then the step number 3, a digital signature is attached to the scrambled message by signing the message digest with the private key of the sender. Number 4, the encrypted message, the digital signature, and the hash function are sent to the receiver via internet. Number 5, public key of the sender is then used by the receiver to reveal the message digest and thus confirm the identity or authenticity of the sender. Here you should understand the role of the certification authorities and the digital certificate, which attests the association of the individual with the corresponding public key. Number 6, the receiver after that uses his or her private key only known to the receiver to decrypt the message. Then number 7, receiver applies hash function to the received original message and computes the message digest. If this message digest matches with the one received from the sender, it confirms that the message has not been altered during transmission. In fact, this confirms the integrity of the message. So this is how the digital signature technology works. Now, we can study a few more things in this connection. One is that where we do not want to use the pair of public and private keys for confidentiality purpose, then we can use the symmetric key for that purpose. So if I want to scramble my original message, then instead of using the public key of the receiver, this is possible that I use a single key, a symmetric key, and with the help of that, I encrypt the message, and then the receiver would use the same symmetric key to decrypt the message. Here for confidentiality, the public and private keys, they would not be used, rather a single symmetric key can be utilized. In other words, I am using both the types of cryptography, symmetric type and asymmetric type. You can look at the slide to have an understanding of the idea. Notice the hash function is applied on the original message by the sender. It results into a message digest. Then original message is encrypted with the help of a symmetric key. You can see the upper portion of the diagram. The symmetric key is used here now to encrypt the original message. The message then gets scrambled. After that, the message is signed with the help of the private key of the sender. This signed and scrambled message is delivered to the receiver via internet. Again, the receiver would apply the sender's public key to reveal the message digest, and then the receiver would use the same key, the symmetric key with which the information was encrypted, to unscramble or decrypt this passage. Again, after that, the original message which is now revealed, on that message the hash function would be applied, a message digest would then come, and that message digest can then be compared with the message digest which was revealed earlier by the receiver using the public key of the sender. If both are the same, that means the integrity is there. Here I would like to point out that the symmetric algorithms, they are inherently faster as compared to asymmetric algorithms. So wherever we want to encrypt some data, some information in bulk, and we want that to happen quickly, fastly, it would be preferable that we use the symmetric key for encryption purposes, for making the data information confidential. In order to transport or supply this symmetric key to the receiver side, again we'll have to apply the concept of asymmetric cryptography. What we need to do is that we would encrypt that symmetric key with the help of the public key of the receiver, and then transport it to the receiver. The receiver would then apply his private key, and with the help of that he would achieve the symmetric key, and then using that symmetric key which has now been transported, has now been supplied or passed over to the receiver would then do any encryption job. So any data, any information which is encrypted with that symmetric key, now the symmetric key is already available with the receiver would use that symmetric key and then decrypt that information. Then PGP applies both these types of cryptography. So in PGP you are familiar with that cryptographic system now. In that both the symmetric and asymmetric type is applied, and we encrypt the data with the symmetric key to achieve fastness, and we use asymmetric to deliver it, to pass it over to the receiver side. Then in case I am not interested in the integrity part, say I'm just interested to have the authenticity as regards a message, I'm not interested to check the integrity of a message, then things can become rather simpler for us. So you can see in the slide, so where I'm not interested in the integrity, I don't then use any hash function, I don't have any message digest. Therefore, because both hash function and message digest, they are used for integrity purposes, I'm here just interested in the authenticity thing. So what I can do is I write my original message, I can then scramble it with the help of a symmetric key. The message would then get scrambled, and then I can choose a name or a passphrase. Say in this particular example, I have chosen the word Imran, and then I apply my private key. I, being a sender, I apply my private key, insert my private key on this word Imran. So accordingly, the word Imran, it would get scrambled, and I can say that I have created a digital signature here. Then I supply it to the receiver via internet. The receiver would use the public key of the sender, and then the word Imran would be revealed before the receiver, and then the user can unscramble the message by applying the symmetric key. The point I'm trying to make here is that in this particular scenario, for all different types of messages, I have chosen the word Imran to be my digital signature. Here you can notice that I have chosen the word Imran, in which I apply the private key of the sender, and this word Imran would remain constant, would remain the same for all sorts of different messages for the digital signature purposes. So each and every message that I am typing, I have fixed this word Imran, and by applying the private key of the sender, I encrypt this word Imran. It is on the other side get revealed by applying the public key of the sender, and for all messages the word Imran is the constant name. You can notice that in case of hash function, our digital signature is derived from the message itself. You can notice that in case of hash functions, our digital signatures, they are derived from the message itself. So whenever there is a message written, we apply a hash function, we get a message digest, we insert the private key in that message digest, and we get a digital signature. So our signature is in such a case dependent upon the message digest or the message itself. So each time I change the message, I have a different message digest accordingly, and as a result I have a different digital signature. But in this particular case, where I choose some name, some passphrase, I can fix my digital signatures, and I can choose any word, say Imran in this particular case I chose, and that would remain the same for all sorts of messages. Here I'm not interested in the integrity, I'm just focusing on the authenticity thing. Here I would like to point out that when I say that a hash function is a one-way mathematical function, I mean that when we apply a hash function on a text, we get a message digest. But by applying the hash function on the message digest, we cannot go back, we cannot revert to the text-based information. So that is why we say that a hash function is a one-way mathematical function. We apply it on a text, we get a message digest, but by applying the same hash on the message digest, we cannot go back to our text-based information. Then here I would like to pose a question to you. You have now developed a fair degree of understanding about the whole thing, the concept. So can you tell me that in your opinion, what is more reliable, a digital signature or a paper-based signature? What is your opinion about it? There is a consensus abroad on this thing that a digital signature is more reliable, it is more trustworthy as compared to the paper-based signatures. So it's a common experience that your paper-based signatures, they can easily be copied, they can be forged. You can study the particular style of an individual, how does he put his signatures, and then copying or forging those signatures, you can do forgery. And there are many examples, many cases that come before the courts of law in which the dispute is about the signature itself. So one person says that these signatures belong to this particular person, and that person denies that, well, these are not my signatures, and then the handwriting experts have to be called and they have to give their expert opinion to the court to determine whether these signatures belong to a particular person or not. So on the other hand, if you understand, the digital signatures, they are extremely difficult to be copied or forged. In order to copy or forge a digital signature, you need to have the private key of that individual. And the private key is normally kept very secured. The person who has got a private key, he would make every effort to protect the private key from being known to any person. So in that regard, we can say that an electronic signature is likely to be more secured, more reliable as opposed to paper-based signatures. There is a term, public key infrastructure, or PKI. I just want to briefly talk about it. PKI means that structured system which provides the management facilities for keys. It also provides the mechanism for the storage and the use of digital certificates. PKI also involves, therefore, certification authorities. There are different useful applications of PKI, public key infrastructure, and I would just talk about the three important ones. One is the online contracts. So PKI would be used in online contracts in certain cases, for that matter. I here would like to point out that traditionally, in order to conclude a contract, there are three ingredients to be satisfied. So there must be an offer, there has to be an acceptance of that offer, and there must be some consideration. If these three ingredients, elements, offer, acceptance, and consideration, they are fulfilled, then we can say that a lawfully binding contract has come into existence. Remember that in case of online contracts also, the same three elements or ingredients of a traditionally valid contract, they are also applicable in case of online contracts. Therefore, if you visit a website and there are certain terms and conditions of a contract there, and there is an I agree or I accept button, if you click on that I agree or I accept button, that in most cases you have in fact entered into a lawfully binding online contract. In order to provide authenticity to such online contracts, it can be arranged that the terms of the online contract, they should be digitally signed by the parties. And if that is the case, then the public and the private keys, they have to be utilized. The same concepts of digital certificates and the certification authorities, they would come into play. And probably the time is not far when the online contracts would be required maybe to be digitally signed also with the help of digital signatures. Then another very important application of PKI is in relation to e-banking. So therefore, most of the e-banking systems, the payment mechanisms used in e-banking, they rely upon cryptography. They make use of the digital signature technology. So the pair of the public, private keys, the digital certificates, the certification authorities, all these features, then they can be made applicable in payment systems for e-banking. In this regard, I can specifically mention that for electronic checks, for e-cash, for SSL and SET based payment systems, we use digital signature technology. We use the keys, the cryptography that matter, and we are going to study, inshallah, in our coming lectures, these different payment systems which in one way or the other utilize the PKI. Now, interestingly, another application of PKI is in case of e-voting. So I have experienced while my stay abroad that there were certain systems which were being developed in order to implement this concept of e-voting. The idea was that, say, for a small level, the e-voting system should be made applicable. So where there are certain elections to take place at a departmental level, it was possible that with the help of e-votes, the casting of the voting would be done. So in that case, the individuals, instead of lining up in queues, they can simply use the networks and they can make use of the PKI to sign their votes and to cast their votes in this fashion electronically. But I think there would be a lot of effort that would probably be required to expand this concept, the concept of e-voting. So with this concept, PKI, then I would like to introduce another term, that is key length. The key length is used to measure, in fact, the strength of cryptographic algorithms. In other words, the cryptographic algorithms, they can be specified in terms of key length. A cryptographic key, basically is a string of binary digits. So 0, 1s, these are the binary digits. So a cryptographic key inside a computer would be viewed in terms of such binary data. In case a cryptographic key is 1 bit in length, that means that there are two possible key values, 0 and 1. I can show you this concept through a slide. So you can see if a key is 1 bit in length, it means two possible keys, that is 0 and 1. If a key is 2 bits in length, it means 4 possible key values, that is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1. Similarly, key having 3 bits length would have values 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1. In fact, 8 key values. So from this, we can draw a conclusion. We can create a formula which would state that number of keys is equal to 2 raised to power number of bits. So where the key length is 4 bits, then the number of possible keys would be 2 raised to power 4, that is 16, and so on. So the cryptographic algorithms, they are measured in terms of key length. So we will find that there are algorithms whose key length is 56 bits. Other algorithms, they have key length 128 bits. So in terms of key length, we can measure, we can specify the cryptographic algorithms. In our subsequent lecture, inshallah, we shall further talk about this concept, key length, and then we'll also find out that what are various cryptographic algorithms, both in relation to symmetric type and asymmetric type. And we shall also, inshallah, study what are the various possible attacks that can be launched on cryptography. For today, that is all. And I hope that you are making a good progress. You are understanding these concepts. You are applying your mind. So with these concluding remarks, we sign off. Allah Hafiz.